Hey, it's me, Moser, with a quick run through of your Intro to Genetics vocabulary. So let's dive right in. I'm going to start with DNA, which some of you have told me you've been talking about in biology for years, but I guess this is really the first year that you get more technical detail on it. So we remember, because we've had this on like 5 matrices, it's a really long molecule, long and stringy. It's made up of 4 bases that organize themselves, joining up in 2 pairs, A's and T's and C's and G's, and it codes for protein. It is a molecule that is found in every living thing on the planet. So if you want that user-friendly definition, DNA is a chemical used in all living things to store and pass on genetic information. I guess I could add, and instructions for making protein, but we'll leave it at that. So here's a question. Every cell in a human body has how many pieces of DNA? Sometimes people know this, sometimes they don't. What counts as a piece? Well, every cell in the human body has got 46 individual pieces of DNA, and it's actually 23 matching pairs. Think of it like 23 pairs of socks. Now, another word that you've heard a lot, but you may not really fully understand, though we did talk about it on one previous matrix, is gene. And people will say a lot of things about what a gene is, but legitimately, in the simplest terms, it is just a section of DNA. So if we want, again, a user-friendly definition, and this is how you're going to mark your gene when you build a chromosome, we could say that a gene is a section of DNA that codes for a specific protein. And genes code for one protein at a time. Now, think back to when we did protein synthesis. You know, you've got one little tiny gene on this little chromosome, and you want to fish out that one gene to go build your protein. Ugh! We definitely are going to need a better storage system. So we need a way to organize this DNA, and fortunately, all living things on the planet do that. The sort of storage system is what's called a chromosome, and it's a structure that's made of DNA that is wrapped around proteins, and each chromosome is literally a single piece of DNA. So when I say you have 46 pieces of DNA, I'm saying you have 46 chromosomes in every cell in your body. This is definitely a better storage system. These are what the chromosomes that you're going to build will look like, and I've zoomed in here. One of the genes on that chromosome might be a section like that. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so the word karyotype, we're going to use it to mean that it's an image of all of an organism's chromosomes. Technically, a karyotype is actually all of the chromosomes that an organism has, and the picture is a karyogram, but we're going to use the word karyotype. This is word number 6, if you're keeping track. And now we're back on on the in-order path with autosomes. This is word number 4. So remember, auto, like an autotroph, meant self. Autosomes are body chromosomes. And in humans, the autosomes are the first 22 pairs of chromosomes. These have the genes on them for things like hair color, skin color, eye color, lactose tolerance, all kinds of just the genes that tell your body how to make the proteins that make your skin, that make your eyes, that make your hair. All of that is on the autosomes, those first 22 chromosomes. And we said that these are the first 22 pairs. Sometimes we have a mistake in making eggs or sperm, and we actually get an extra copy of a chromosome. I love this picture of this little girl. Trisomy is a condition we'll talk about a little bit more in level 2. It's when somebody's got an extra copy of a chromosome. And Down syndrome is the best known trisomy. It's a trisomy on the 21st autosome. But anyway, more about trisomies later. I just wanted to toss that in. So the sex chromosomes in mammals, in humans and deer and dogs and foxes and sea lions and elephants and whales, are X and Y. And these are the chromosomes that control what we call the primary sexual characteristics. So the primary sexual characteristic you might think is, do I grow a beard or not? It's not. It's just which gametes the body produces. So if the primary sexual characteristic is somebody produces eggs, typically they have an XX. People with an XY typically produce sperm. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. All those other characteristics that we think of as being masculine or feminine, male or female, like beard growth and sharp chins and hair on the chest, those are actually all secondary sexual characteristics. Sometimes they line up with the primary, very often. Sometimes they don't. But again, the sex chromosomes control that primary sexual characteristic. And again, as we said, XX and XY are the most common arrangements of those sex chromosomes, and typically people with an XX will produce eggs. Typically people with an XY will produce sperm. There are some other arrangements that happen, such as XO, XXY, XYY, and what's called XY androgen insensitivity. More on those as we get further into genetics. So you'll remember that homo means same, and the homologous chromosomes are the two chromosomes of the same length. So chromosomes 1 and chromosomes 2 and chromosomes 3 and 5 and 15. I've circled there chromosomes 13, the homologous pair. Now, a pair of homologous chromosomes will have all the same genes on them. Where did you get those homologous chromosomes? Well, you got one from yo mama, and you got one from yo papa. And you only get to pass on one of each pair. These are some really lovely sort of cartoons that I drew of homologous chromosomes years ago. And you can see those little colored bands represent genes on the chromosome. So each homologous chromosome has got the same genes. Sometimes they have different versions of the gene. For instance, here we have a little g, a recessive, and here we have a big G. Here we have a dominant I, a big I, and here we have a recessive I. We can also see situations where the versions of the genes that were inherited are the same. But again, homologous chromosomes, one comes from the egg, one comes from the sperm, and they will always have the same genes on them. So when we say that a cell is diploid, remember that di, that prefix, means two. And what we're saying is that the cell has two of each pair of homologous chromosomes. If we say that a cell is haploid, hap sounds kind of like half, they have only one from each pair of homologous chromosomes. So somatic, soma means the body. Somatic cells are body cells. And these are things like skin cells, muscle cells, ligament cells, bone and blood cells. Any cells that are not reproductive in nature are somatic cells. If you want the user-friendly definition, a somatic cell is a cell that has two copies of each chromosome and all the DNA needed for the entire body, but only some genes are active. Somatic cells are diploid. Remember, they've got two copies of each chromosome. We've been using the word gametes on and off, but remember, gametes are sex cells. These are eggs and sperm, whatever shape they take, whatever size they are, eggs and sperm are gametes. Now, gametes are cells that only have half the usual chromosomes, the usual number of chromosomes, so that they can fuse with another gamete to form a new organism. Gametes are haploid cells. If you have questions, please ask them. Thanks.